The night my future son-in-law's father said my family was attending the engagement party in spirit. I was standing 3 feet away from him, holding a sweating glass of club soda, wearing a red flannel shirt I've owned for 15 years. He didn't even lower his voice. "Well," he said, scanning the room at the country club in Greenwich, Connecticut. "We're glad your side could join us." In spirit. A few people chuckled politely, the kind of laughter people use when they want to stay invited to the next yacht party. I sniffed once. Not from tears. I had a cold that week. That was the moment something shifted. I've spent most of my adult life trying not to look like what I am. I drive a 2008 Ford F-150 with 214,000 miles on it. It rattles at red lights and smells faintly like cedar because I keep spare lumber in the back. I wear flannel shirts from a hardware store in Stamford. My boots cost $89. I like them that way. My name is Walter. I'm 58 years old. I grew up in Ohio, son of a machinist. I paid my way through the University of Michigan with scholarships and night shifts. I've eaten more vending machine dinners than I can count. Today, I am a senior partner at a private equity firm in Manhattan managing just under $18.4 billion in assets. I sit on investment committees. I help decide which companies receive $50 million, $100 million, sometimes $300 million in funding. But I don't talk about that at dinner. My daughter, Emily, once told me she appreciated that. "I like that you're just dad," she said. That was before she met Brad. Brad came from what he liked to call old money. His family had a summer house in the Hamptons and a winter place in Aspen. His father, Charles, owned a chain of luxury car dealerships across the Northeast. They didn't just have money, they wore it. Brad drove a new Mercedes S-Class. He wore Italian suits that cost more than my first car. He used words like optics and leverage in casual conversation, usually incorrectly. The first time I met him was at a restaurant in Westchester County. I arrived straight from my cabin upstate, still in flannel, my truck parked between 2 Range Rovers. He looked at my truck for a long moment. "You restoring that?" he asked. "No," I said. "Driving it." He smiled the way someone smiles at a child who just announced he wants to be an astronaut. Over dinner, he asked Emily about her marketing job, about her yoga studio, about her trip to Napa. He asked me if I was retired. "No," I said. "I work." He nodded politely. "That's good. Staying active is important." He never asked what I did. Not once. Over the next year, the pattern continued. Barbecues, holidays, birthday dinners. Brad would discuss venture rounds and valuations with sweeping confidence. He'd talk about raising a Series C for his tech startup, a logistics platform he claimed would revolutionize last-mile delivery. He never asked about my work. When Emily mentioned that I commuted into Manhattan twice a week, he said, "Consulting? Something like that," I replied. He seemed relieved. Sometimes he'd make comments that hovered just shy of insult. "Must be nice not having the pressure we do." Or, "I can't imagine starting from scratch at this stage." Or my favorite, delivered while examining my watch. A simple stainless steel Timex. "You know, Brad, I could get you something decent. As a gift." I sniffed again that night. Same cold. The engagement happened in December. Brad proposed at a vineyard in Sonoma. There were drone photos, a videographer, a violinist hidden behind a row of vines. Emily called me crying, happy. I said yes before she even asked. The engagement party was hosted by Brad's family at their country club. There were about 120 guests. Catered seafood towers. Champagne I recognized as Dom Perignon 2012. Retail around $250 a bottle. I know prices. It's a habit. I stood near the back most of the night. Charles approached me halfway through. "Walter," he said, clapping my shoulder. "We're taking care of the wedding expenses. It's only fair." "That's generous," I said. "It's tradition," he replied. "Given circumstances." I waited. "You know, we understand not everyone has the same flexibility. I've negotiated billion-dollar acquisitions with less arrogance in the room." Then came the toast. Charles stood at the podium, silver hair immaculate, voice smooth. "We're thrilled to welcome Emily into our family," he said. "And we're glad her family could join us tonight." In spirit. That laugh again. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger. Clarity. 3 weeks later, on a gray Tuesday morning in Manhattan, I walked into conference room 14B on the 32nd floor of our office overlooking Bryant Park. On the agenda, a $75 million growth equity proposal from a logistics tech startup seeking expansion capital. Founder and CEO, Bradley Thompson. I paused when I saw the name. I hadn't known the company's funding round was coming through us. We review dozens every quarter. My calendar had been full. The screening memo had been circulated by our associates. I flipped through the executive summary. Revenue, $8.2 million last year. Negative EBITDA. Burn rate, $640,000 per month. Projected profitability in 24 months. Optimistic. Request, $75 million for 30% equity. Valuation implied, $250 million. Aggressive. I leaned back in my chair. I hadn't told anyone at the firm about my connection. Conflict disclosures would come up if necessary. But first I needed facts. Professional facts. Because personal feelings have no place in investment decisions. Even when someone has just toasted your existence as spiritual. I sniffed. Still that cold. Or maybe something else. I closed the folder and looked at the skyline. For the first time, I wondered whether Brad's arrogance was just personality. Or strategy. And whether the insult at the engagement party was just social clumsiness. Or a preview of something much larger. I didn't recuse myself immediately. That might sound unethical. It wasn't. Our process allows a preliminary review before formal conflict declarations. At that stage, I wasn't voting. I was evaluating whether the deal even deserved to reach full committee discussion. And I needed to know something first. Was Brad just arrogant? Or was he reckless with other people's money the way he was with other people's dignity? I asked our associate Daniel to pull expanded financials. "Anything specific?" he asked. "Cash flow details," I said. "Customer concentration, vendor contracts, and I want raw bank statements for the last 12 months. He blinked. "That's thorough. We're talking $75 million, I replied. Thorough is cheap. By Friday afternoon, I had a stack of documents 3 inches thick. I took them home. My cabin upstate has a large oak table by the window. Snow was falling that night, slow and quiet. I made black coffee and started reading. The burn rate wasn't just high. It was erratic. In March, $610,000. April, $635,000. May, $642,000. June, $880,000. That jump caught my eye. I traced the expenses. Consulting strategic advisory, $240,000. Paid to Thompson Automotive Holdings, LLC. I froze. That was Charles's dealership entity. I double-checked the EIN. It matched. I leaned back in my chair and let out a low breath. Brad's startup, pre-profit, burning cash, had paid nearly $250,000 to his father's car dealership holding company for strategic advisory. I sniffed. Not from a cold this time. I called Michael the next morning. Michael has been our firm's external counsel for 19 years. Harvard Law. Dry humor. Owns more fountain pens than ties. "I need you to look at something," I said. "Personal or professional?" "Yes," I replied. He sighed. That tone usually means paperwork. We met Monday at 7:30 a.m. in his office near Grand Central. He read in silence for 20 minutes. Then he adjusted his glasses. "Walter," he said carefully, "this is self-dealing. Illegal, potentially, at minimum, undisclosed related party transactions. If they're seeking institutional capital without full disclosure, that's securities fraud territory." I nodded slowly. "Do they disclose this in the deck?" he asked. "No." "Anywhere in footnotes?" "No." He tapped the page. "If this comes out during due diligence after funding, your firm would have exposure. If it comes out before, projected growth assumed a logistics contract that hadn't been signed. And then there was the personal loan. Brad had loaned his own company $1.2 million last year. On paper, admirable, except the funds traced back to a personal line of credit co-signed by Charles. Interest rate, 9.5%. Repayment priority, ahead of future equity holders. Meaning if we invested $75 million and the company failed, Brad and Charles would recover their loan before we recovered equity. They had insulated themselves. At investor expense. I closed the file. This wasn't youthful overconfidence. This was calculated. Meanwhile, wedding planning accelerated. Emily called me nightly about venues, flowers, seating charts. Brad's parents want 300 guests, she said one evening. That's a lot of spirits, I muttered. What? Nothing. She sounded tired. Dad? Do you like him? The question hung in the air. I love you, I said. That's not what I asked. I looked out the window at Manhattan traffic below my office. I think, I said carefully, that how someone treats people who can't help them tells you everything. She was quiet. Has he treated you poorly? She asked. No, I said. Not me. That wasn't entirely true. But humiliation is lighter when carried alone. The formal investment committee meeting was scheduled for March 18th at 9 a.m. Brad would present in person. He still had no idea. I had finally filed a conflict disclosure 2 days prior. It stated, Founder is engaged to my daughter. I will abstain from voting but remain for questioning. Transparency matters. So does timing. The morning of the meeting, I wore a navy suit. Custom. Quietly expensive. I arrived early. Our conference room seats 12. Long walnut table. Floor-to-ceiling glass. The kind of room where numbers decide futures. At 8:57 a.m., Brad walked in with 2 slides decks and the confidence of someone who has never been contradicted in a meaningful way. He didn't see me at first. He was laughing with one of our junior partners. Then he turned. Our eyes met. The color drained from his face so quickly it was almost artistic. Walter, he said. Good morning, Brad. Silence spread across the table. I gestured toward the empty chair across from me. Please, I said. He sat. His hands trembled just slightly as he opened his laptop. I felt no anger, only stillness. He began the presentation. Market opportunity. TAM, $12 billion. Growth projections. AI optimization algorithms. His voice wavered once, then steadied. When he finished, our managing partner nodded toward me. Walter. I folded my hands. Brad, I said evenly. Can you walk us through the $240,000 consulting payment to Thompson Automotive Holdings last June? His mouth opened, closed. That was strategic advisory, he said finally. Provided by whom? My father. Is that disclosed in your related party transactions? He swallowed. We didn't consider it material. $240,000, I said softly, is material to a company with $8 million in revenue. The room felt smaller. I continued. And the $1.2 million shareholder loan? Repayment senior to equity? That's standard, he replied weakly. Not without disclosure. One of the other partners leaned forward. Why wasn't this in the deck? She asked. Brad's confidence cracked. It was oversight. Oversight. That word. So casual. So expensive. The questioning lasted 47 minutes. By the end, Brad's shirt collar was damp. When he finished, he looked at me, not as a man in flannel, as a gatekeeper. Walter, he said quietly. I didn't know. I know, I replied. That was the most honest sentence either of us had spoken to each other. The committee asked him to step outside. The vote to decline was unanimous. Not because of me. Because of numbers. Because of ethics. Because $75 million demands integrity. After the meeting, Brad waited in the hallway. He looked smaller somehow. I had no idea, he said. About what? I asked. About you. That's the problem, I said. He stared at the floor. I love your daughter. I believe you, I replied. But love without respect corrodes. He didn't argue. For once. That evening, Emily showed up at my apartment unannounced. She had been at Brad's apartment when he returned from Manhattan. He had told her everything. Is it true? She asked me. Yes. All of it. Yes. She sank into my couch. He said it was normal, she whispered. It's common, I said. Not the same thing. She covered her face with her hands. I watched how he treated you, she said. I told myself it was just personality, that he'd grow out of it. I didn't speak. I think I was wrong. The room was quiet except for city noise below. I don't want to marry someone who thinks kindness is optional, she said. My chest tightened. Then don't, I replied. Emily called off the engagement 3 days later. No dramatic scene. No screaming. Just a quiet conversation in Brad's high-rise apartment overlooking the Hudson. She returned the ring 3.2 carats emerald cut. I'd seen the receipt accidentally once. $186,000. She placed it on his kitchen counter. I need a partner, she told him. Not a performance. He didn't try to stop her. That part surprised me. What happened next moved faster than any of us expected. Our firm's formal decline memo went out internally on March 22nd. Professional, neutral language. Insufficient governance controls. Undisclosed related party transactions. Unfavorable risk profile. In private equity, reputations travel faster than money. Within 2 weeks, 2 other institutional investors withdrew from Brad's round. One cited concerns regarding transparency. The other simply stopped returning emails. Word spreads in Manhattan like a winter virus. Sniffing optional. Brad tried to pivot. He announced a bridge round from existing investors. But existing investors read memos too. And due diligence, once started, doesn't politely forget what it finds. One of his early angel investors requested audited financials. The auditor flagged the same consulting payments. And something else. The $240,000 paid to Thompson Automotive Holdings hadn't come with deliverables. No contracts. No documented advisory reports. Just invoices marked strategic guidance. When pressed, Charles claimed it covered industry introductions. There were none documented. That's when regulators entered the picture. Not because of me, because of paperwork. The Securities and Exchange Commission doesn't care about flannel shirts or country club toasts. They care about disclosure. Brad called me in early April. His voice was different, smaller. They're investigating, he said. I heard. You could help. It wasn't a demand. It wasn't even arrogance. It was desperation. How? I asked. You know people. I do, I said. But influence isn't immunity. Silence. I never meant to disrespect you, he said. That wasn't the issue. What was? You didn't think it mattered. He exhaled slowly. I was building something. At any cost? Another silence. That was answer enough. The investigation didn't lead to handcuffs. It led to fines. Civil penalties for inadequate disclosure. Mandatory governance restructuring. Charles stepped down from any advisory involvement. The $1.2 million shareholder loan was restructured behind future equity. Expensive lessons. Brad's company survived barely. Valuation slashed from $250 million to $90 million in a distressed recapitalization 6 months later. He lost majority control. Charles lost face. And for a man like Charles, that cut deepest. I saw Charles once more that summer. It was at a charity golf event in Westchester. We were paired randomly. He approached me near the 7th hole. You enjoyed that, he said.
No, irraplia.
You could have warned us. I did, I said. In the meeting. His jaw tightened. You think you're better than us? I considered that. No, I said finally. I just don't think I'm worse. He didn't speak to me for the remaining 11 holes. I played terribly. Shot a 92. Worth it. Emily moved back into her apartment in Brooklyn. She started therapy. Not because she was broken. Because she wanted to understand why she'd ignored what she saw. I confused confidence. I replied with 2 sentences. Humility compounds faster than capital. I hope you learn that before your next round. He didn't respond. That was fine. Not every lesson needs applause. The night of what would have been the wedding, Emily and I grilled steaks at my cabin upstate.
No tuxedos.
No string quartet. Just us. Pine trees. Crickets. She raised her beer. To canceled plans, she said. To revised projections, I added. She rolled her eyes. Dad. I smiled. The air smelled like cedar and smoke. Peace has a scent. Consequences rarely arrive with fireworks. They arrive as emails, as amended contracts, as quieter invitations. By October, Brad's company had completed its distressed recapitalization. New valuation, $90 million pre-money. Investment, $25 million from a mid-tier growth fund based in Chicago. Terms, 2 board seats seated. Founder voting control reduced from 62% to 28%. Mandatory CFO hire approved by investors. The new CFO had 20 years of public company experience and the personality of an IRS audit. Appropriate. Charles was formally removed from any advisory relationship. The consulting invoices were refunded to the company as part of a settlement agreement. Reputation damage, unquantifiable. In private markets, memory is long. Socially, the shift was quieter but just as visible. The country club stopped calling about charity galas. Invitations to Hampton's weekends dried up. Old money does not forgive public embarrassment. It certainly does not forgive regulatory letters. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Charles blamed overzealous compliance culture. Blame travels easier than accountability, but not as far. Emily rebuilt slowly. She threw herself into work, expanded her marketing portfolio, took on 3 new clients. Revenue up 38% year over year. She stopped apologizing for other people's behavior. That was the biggest gain. One night in November, we were having dinner in Brooklyn when she asked me something I hadn't expected. Why didn't you ever tell him who you were? I cut into my salmon carefully. Because I wanted to know who he was. She nodded slowly. And I found out. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. You saw it, I said. You just hoped it would change. Hope is not due diligence. As for me, I kept going to work. Same office. Same skyline. Same F-150 in the garage with the faded paint and stubborn engine light. One of our junior analysts saw me getting out of it one morning. Sir, he said cautiously, you know you can afford something newer, right? I know, I replied. He hesitated. Why don't you? I thought about that for a moment. Because it runs, I said. And because I don't need strangers to understand me at a stoplight. He nodded like he understood. He didn't. That's fine. There was one final ripple. In December, our firm received a pitch deck from a different logistics startup. Smaller, cleaner, no related party payments, clear disclosures. Founder, a woman in her early 30s from Detroit, first-generation college graduate, MBA from Northwestern, drove a used Honda Civic. She wore a navy blazer slightly too large at the shoulders. When she finished her presentation, she looked around the room and said, I don't have the right pedigree, but I have the right numbers. I smiled. We invested $40 million. Governance strong. Terms fair. Board aligned. Respect given where it was earned. Brad's company still exists. Smaller. Humbler. Last I heard, he stepped back from CEO into a product role after pressure from the board. That might be good for him. Leadership without ego is rare. Sometimes it requires subtraction. On Christmas Eve, Emily came up to the cabin again. Snow falling. Fireplace crackling. She handed me a small box. Inside was a new flannel shirt. Same brand. Same pattern. Thought you might need a backup, she said. I sniffed dramatically. Allergies, I muttered. She laughed. You know, she said. Brad once told me you didn't seem ambitious. I raised an eyebrow. And I think he confused ambition with noise. That stayed with me. Ambition doesn't have to announce itself. It just builds, quietly, compounding. There's a myth about revenge. It's supposed to feel hot, explosive, satisfying in a cinematic way. Mine felt cold, measured, almost boring. And that's why it worked. I didn't destroy Brad. I didn't need to. I simply refused to protect him from the consequences of his own decisions. That's different. There's a temptation, when someone underestimates you, to prove them wrong loudly, to peel back the curtain in dramatic fashion, to say, "Do you know who I am?" But identity that requires announcement is fragile. I never wanted Brad to fear me. I wanted him to see himself clearly. That's harsher. The real betrayal wasn't financial. It wasn't even the insult at the engagement party. It was the assumption, the quiet calculation that a man in flannel driving an old truck, standing near the back of the room, must be irrelevant. That he must be safe to diminish. That he must not matter. People reveal themselves most honestly in how they treat those they believe can do nothing for them. That's the purest data set you'll ever get. No pitch deck required. A few months ago, I ran into Brad unexpectedly at a conference in Chicago. I was speaking on a panel about governance in growth stage companies. He was attending. Smaller badge.
No entourage.
He approached me after the session. "You were right," he said. I tilted my head. "About transparency, humility, all of it." His voice wasn't defensive. It was tired. "Pain is an expensive teacher," I said. He gave a short laugh. "Yeah." We stood there for a moment. "I never thanked you," he added. "For what?" "For not burying us when you could have." I thought about that. "I didn't spare you," I said. "I spared my daughter." That seemed to land. He nodded once. Then he walked away.
No handshake.
No hard feelings. Just distance. Sometimes that's the cleanest outcome. Emily is doing well. She met someone new this spring. A public school teacher from Queens. He drives a Subaru with a dented bumper and asks questions when he's curious. The first time we met, he said, "Emily tells me you work in finance." "What kind?" "Direct. Simple. Respectful." We talked for an hour about municipal bonds and school funding gaps. He listened. That mattered. Later, as we were clearing dishes, he said, "Sir, you built something impressive. I hope I get there one day." I shrugged. "Build character first," I said. "Capital follows." He smiled. Not threatened. Just thoughtful. Different foundation. As for me, I still drive the F-150. It's at 231,000 miles now. The engine light is permanently on. The mechanic says it's a sensor. I ignore it. I still wear flannel. Still sit at the back of crowded rooms sometimes. It's a useful vantage point. You hear things there. You see who performs and who observes. You see who respects waitstaff and who snaps fingers. You see who scans the room for power and who looks for people. Those details matter more than resumes. More than valuations. More than emerald-cut rings. If there's a lesson in all of this, it isn't about revenge. It's about preservation. Protect your peace. Protect your integrity. Protect the people you love from environments where respect is conditional. Don't act in anger. Anger burns capital. Act with clarity. Clarity compounds. The best revenge isn't humiliation. It's living so solidly, so steadily, that someone else's arrogance can't move you. Let the numbers speak. Let the truth surface. Let character reveal itself under pressure. And when someone shows you who they are while you're standing there in an old truck and a flannel shirt, believe them, then respond accordingly. I sniffed once as I locked the cabin door last weekend. Still that cedar smell. Still the quiet. Still building. Quietly. Compounding. And that, in the end, is more than enough.